Hi everybody, today I'm going to do a book review on Permafrost. Let me read just one paragraph of this to you. A post-apocalyptic time travel adventure from master of science fiction Alastair Reynolds that takes place in 2080, so I'll be 100 years old. At a remote site on the edge of the Arctic Circle, a group of scientists, engineers, and physicians gather to gamble humanity's future on one last-ditch experiment. The goal? To make a tiny alteration to the past, averting a global catastrophe while at the same time leaving recorded history intact. I think you should read Dark Matter. That was the last book I reviewed. So I'm going to start folding towels and go through what the library told me were the discussion points. So join me while I do that, and we'll do a review of Permafrost by Alastair Reynolds. I have a few really good points about this book. I like the premise behind the book because I quite frankly think it is likely. Something terrible happens in the near future where we don't have enough food and people have to be sterilized so they don't bring babies into a horrible world, and so they refer to that point in history called the scouring, and something happens. So there are all these ships and they're docked in the Arctic, and they need to go back in time and ensure that there's enough food, and so humanity will survive. I thought that was great. I thought that it was cool that you learn pretty quickly that the main character is a woman, and I thought it was cool that Alastair Reynolds is a man and he wrote a lead character that's a woman. I'm going to go through the talking points with you. The library has closed indefinitely, and so our book club obviously didn't meet on the 19th, and I do this book club with my friend Jan, and I said, "What'd you think of the book?" And she goes, "What was the point?" And I won't be that honest, I guess. I agree. I read the book and I said, well, good for me for reading in 2 days the book, but what was the point? It was just like a good story, I guess, and a short one at that. So I'm going to go through my laptop and talk to you about the talking points that we would have discussed in book club. The first topic was ecological failure. So I didn't realize that was the scouring that they were referring to. So something happened such that there's not enough food for the planet. Now, I don't know if you know this is actually being done right now. Somewhere, I believe it's in the Antarctic, not the Arctic. They actually have seeds that, God forbid there's like a disaster, we won't all die from famine because there are seeds kept there. So what I thought was cool was this book actually explores that. Another thing I liked was I didn't get confused between traveling back and forth in time, because they go back in time and maybe they don't all go back to the same place in time. I thought that was cool that the author was very good about keeping things clean and neat, so you didn't get confused as the reader. So could an ecological failure happen here and now? Comment below and tell me if you think it can. The next one was time travel. That was the talking point that they wanted to discuss. I thought it was great. This is the second book I'm reading about time travel, I guess. The first one being Dark Matter. I'm not really a science fiction reader, so I'm actually happy I read this book because it's nice to be exposed to different kinds of genre, and who knows, maybe I can write a science fiction book someday. Not just minimalism and decluttering and organizing. So I like the time travel idea. I liked It felt like reading The Matrix to me. They plug into the Matrix, and the next thing you know, they're in Brooklyn, New York, flying off of a building. I felt like The Matrix. I don't know if anyone else got that impression from reading the book. I thought it was believable. Obviously, different mechanics, time travel in Permafrost versus time travel in dark matter. I keep bringing up dark matter because it was the last book I read for this book club, so that's it. The next one is the topic of humanity. So this book isn't just about the people at the time. There's also other elements, like who's facilitating the time travel. It's not a person, so I think you'll like that part of it. And also humanity, I thought it was interesting that they very briefly mentioned that because food was running out, people were forced into sterilization because I don't even know if they were forced, but it talks about who wants to bring children into a crazy world. And I think a lot of people think that now. But I like how you actually had to look at humanity. You had to look at the people in 2080 versus the people, I think, in 2030 or 2020. I forget when the dates were. But I thought that was a good element that the author described. So here's where I think the book was lacking. The characters that I most felt for was actually a dog. Are you surprised? I love dogs. But Tatiana. So Tatiana is a young woman who undergoes brain surgery, and I like how the main character is using her body to do X, Y, and Z, but I like how they preserved her character. She finally says, get out of my head. And she said, what are all these machines I'm looking at? Why am I in this bed? Because what they don't anticipate is the host body actually being able to see into the future. So I thought that was really cool. That's the character that I liked, believe it or not, the most. And that's the character I felt for the most, because she didn't have a choice in this matter. She was just a young woman who underwent brain surgery, and now her life is being torn apart. And I don't know, it would have been interesting if they said what sort of algorithm the computers were using for these people to choose their host in the past, to fix things in the past, to preserve the future. I thought that would have been interesting. So that's my take on character. And the last two are compassion and artificial intelligence. Like I said, I mean, they got that emotion from me about compassion. I did feel very compassionate towards the host, who was that character, and I felt compassion to the dog. The dog actually means something to me. I'll put it in the comments below because I actually want you to read the book. So I don't want you don't read the comments. Like, when you're done reading the book, then read the comments. So, and the last one was artificial intelligence. So in order to facilitate this time travel, they need the help of, I think they refer to them as the brothers. And they are these towers of computers that are basically orchestrating everything, and maybe they have some bad intention. So hope you like this book. I'm done folding towels, so cross off number 1 for 19 for COVID-19, and I'm just going to tell you about the other books. We have a big pile. Okay, so the next one's called Tales from the Hills by Peter Green. So Peter Green, I've never met, but he has a mutual friend, my mother's college roommate. So I would assume he's the same age as my mother. This is, so far, I really like this book. I'm not done, as you can see. I recommend that parents read this book to kids. That's my dog. Okay, so that's the dog. I don't know what he wants. Like, he's really spoiled right now because we're both home and I'm catering to these two men and I hope they appreciate me. Okay, he's the same age as my mom and it feels like Stranger Things in India in 1960. So read it to your kids. So far nothing scary, nothing, read it to your children. If I had kids, I'd read this to them. I don't know if you can appreciate the artwork. There's a little bit of glare on this book. The artwork kind of is good. I really like the artwork. It looks menacing and at the same time it looks like, oh, well, that's a nice little village at the top of a hill. Just ignore him scratching. He's very stressed. You know, he's going through a lot. Okay, Tales from the Hills, Peter Green. March is reading month and we're going to be reading all books by male authors for the male audience in the group. So Tales from the Hills. Next I have Bill Bryson. Bill Bryson was introduced to me by a British woman and I randomly saw her video on YouTube and she has a website called Room to Think and the website was beautiful and I'm dreading having to make a website for my book. I'm not really computer savvy. I do it because it's a skill and it's a tool, but I don't wake up and go, I can't wait to make a website. So Squarespace, if you want to sponsor me, I will happily do a website. I reached out to this woman in London and I said, your website is gorgeous and I really like what you said in an interview, and her website's called Room to Think. She wrote back and said, how lovely to hear from you. I'm reading Bill Bryson. I said, sure enough, I'm going to read it. So this is my second Bill Bryson book. The last one was The Road to Little Dribbling. This one's called At Home. Now, most people it's all over Facebook. It's all over the news. It's all over YouTube. People are losing their minds. They cannot be home. I don't have that problem. Maybe it's because I'm an introvert, but I don't have that problem. I'm looking at this as a gift. Like all the things I fantasize about doing when I retire, except for surfing, I'm doing it. And you're going to be a witness to this. So this book is called At Home, my favorite subject, my favorite pastime. I love being home. I love taking care of the home. Within reason. I mean, who wants to do dishes all day? Which is what I do all day. I'm really liking it. It says a short history of private life. I'll just give you the first thing that made me laugh. And he sort of makes you laugh without letting you know you're about to have a good laugh. So the book opens with a Roman and he has a phallic shaped like a pendant or something on his chain and he loses it in a field and he's perplexed that he's lost this funny shaped pendant in a field. And I think 2,000 years later or 1,000 years later, a farmer is in England plowing his field and looks down and sees this gold, oddly funny shaped pendant and he's confused too. So it was just funny that both men have a perplexed look on their face because one found this, phallic shaped pendant on a necklace and then the other one lost it and both have a, perplexed, where'd it go? What is this? I didn't even realize and I was laughing within the first few pages. It's not an easy read as you can see. So it's already March 20th and I hope I can get this done by March 31st, but highly unlikely. Like it's a lot. Like I think it's gonna go through every element of a home, like hallways, bedrooms, kitchens, parlors. So it's a lot. And so Bill Bryson, that's the next men's book we're reading. This one was a surprise. This one is called Daily Rituals, Women at Work, and I didn't know that Mason Curry was a dude. So this one I was really surprised. I'm making a lot of progress and making a lot of notes because I'm going to use this book to make a morning routine video. So let me know if you have a morning routine. I was making fun of people who have morning routines. I'm like, are those people unemployed? Because most of us with bosses, we don't have the luxury of morning routine. We have the luxury of a morning panic. So find out if I change my mind after reading this book. I'm almost done. I think this will probably be our next book review. So the final book is going to be Daily Rituals, Women at Work by Mason Curry. It is about all different kinds of artists. So far I've come across Zora Neale Hurston, Alice Walker, the Bronte sisters. I don't think I've seen Jane Eyre yet. Who else is in there? Ballerinas I've never heard of. I mean, there are 143 stories of artists and writers and sculptors, painters, all of the above. And now I feel like I am culturally illiterate. I didn't know that there were all these famous people that I know nothing about. And it just chronicles their routines. What do they do to be prolific artists? And people like me who have, bosses and, 9 to 5 and work in hospitals. If we were to be artists, how would we work around it? So I got a lot of ideas from this book. So I hope you like my morning rituals video that's going to be coming up. Thank you everybody for joining me. This is number 1 on my list for the 19 for COVID-19. Stay tuned because I'm going to be going through the whole thing and we're going to get through 19 for COVID-19. We're going to do this together. Please be safe. Please socially distance yourself from others. Wash your hands. And if you don't need to be in public, don't go. All right. Take care. I'll see you in the next video. Bye.